All right, what's up, everybody? We're back, man. We are here in Tribeca in the new studios. In the new studios of Police Off the Cuff, right here on. I'm not gonna give out the address, right? Are we doing that?
Nah, inside Blue 360.
The fans are gonna come down here and they're gonna line up the
front. We'll be mobbed.
It'll be like Broadway when we get out, and we're gonna have to sign autographs and stuff. But we're back here, man. We're downtown. We have an exciting guest. What can I say about this guy? He's a former deputy chief on the NYPD, and then he went on to be the commissioner, the police commissioner, first police commissioner that we've had here.
That's right.
That's right. Listen, we had a chief of department so far. We had the chief of the medical examiner's office. We've had lieutenants, sergeants, obviously detectives, but we haven't had a police commissioner.
This is the first one.
The first. Now, mind you, it's Yonkers police commissioner.
Yeah. I know. I'm underwhelming. I know.
What's up, Edmund Hartnett? What's up, buddy?
What's up, Mark?
This is great having you here, man.
Thank
Shake
you very
my hand.
much.
Do you
Thank
like
Bill.
Good seeing you, Chief.
Do you mind if I call you Ed?
Ed's good, please.
All right.
Chief Ed.
I'm gonna call him the commish.
All right.
Let me ask you a question. You hear a lot. That's Irish?
Yeah,
Edmund?
very Irish. Yeah.
Yeah, Edmund.
Edmund and Hartnett.
I've heard,
very Irish.
No, but you hear a lot of. There's a lot of Eds, obviously, millions of Eds, but billions probably now. But Edmund.
Edmund. Yeah, it was a tough name to grow up with, but I kind of grew into it, and now it's kind of cool. But back then, it was a hard name to live with sometimes. But I got through it.
I like it, Edmund.
Well, who calls you Edmund?
Anybody still?
My sainted mother, rest her soul, would call me Edmund, especially when she was ticked off. It's family calls me Edmund usually, and some guys just to break my chops call me Edmund.
Where are you from?
Born in Brooklyn, but raised in Washington Heights, Manhattan.
Oh yeah.
The very
Washington
Tony
Heights.
community of Washington Heights.
That's great. Where'd you grow up? What street in Washington Heights?
Mostly 171st, 172nd, 180th Street. Went to Incarnation Catholic
You
School.
went to Incarnation? So
Yeah,
my cousin
great school.
Dwayne.
Were you an altar boy?
I used to do the high mass, hold the candles. I wasn't ready for being an altar boy, so I'd hold the candle, and the candle would fall off, and then the priest would yell at me.
That's probably a good thing, though, that you.
Yeah, I didn't advance too
boy,
far on the altar boy.
What year
world.
was this that you were in Washington Heights? Those years?
Moved there in 1960, and stayed in the neighborhood until the early 80s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because my grandmother lived on. I had two. My great grandmother lived on 174th in what is it, St. Nick, right? I'm down the block from Incarnation.
Yeah.
So my cousin Dwayne used to go to that school. That's a pretty great neighborhood.
My friends might have
back in
mugged
the
her,
day.
so.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they might have. You never know.
And it's very Dominican now, but back then it was diversified.
It was very. It's It's a great place to grow up. After Cuba fell, we got a lot of Cubans that moved in, and a lot more
Cubans.
professional people. And then they wound up taking fairly menial jobs. And then, Puerto Rican folks came, Dominicans came, and
then
you know what? It was a great place to grow up.
And then after the Dominicans came, then more Dominicans came, and then more Dominicans came.
Yeah.
And then. You just keep coming.
Then-
Nobody else comes there.
But it was a great place to grow up. And then I meet some old cop, years later when I'm on the job, and he asked me where I grew up. So I said Washington Heights, and he says, "Man, that's a shit neighborhood." So I didn't realize it was a bad neighborhood until I moved. This guy had to bring me down and say it was a bad neighborhood.
Did you pick up any Spanish in Washington Heights?
A bit. Yeah,
Couple
I
of
could
sentences?
order off the menu, and pretty much, and it came handy in police
¿Te
work.
gusta maduro? Plátano maduro.
Sí, y arroz con pollo, y chiletas fritas.
Mondongo.
Como no?
Mofongo. Yeah,
Mofongo,
there you go.
mondongo.
That's pretty good.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
great.
right.
All I know is mommy.
Yes. That goes a long way, yeah.
Now, Washington Heights. Did you go to High Bridge Pool?
I did. I
Yeah,
was there for a
spent a
few
lot
riots,
of-
actually. Yeah, there's a couple of riots there when I was there. It was
Oh,
fun.
while you were a kid?
Yeah.
Wow.
I remember swimming in High Bridge Pool with my sneakers in my hand. Because I had the pair of Pumas, the suede ones. They just came out.
You
And
never
couldn't-
bought-
No, you couldn't leave them on the deck.
You
there.
never brought good sneakers to High
No,
Bridge.
so you were swimming with your sneakers just in the water.
That's a New York City thing, right? Yeah. Well, why's the guy holding sneakers above his head?
Everybody.
You can swim good with one arm. It's good, yeah.
Oh, back in the day, I remember we used to have these there's like a key holder around your neck, and then we had these hats, a mesh hat, and we'd fold them this way, and then you had your Adidas with the fat laces and the shell top Adidas. Remember that? And then you put the fat laces that matched the stripes on it. Oh, it was a whole thing, man. Growing up in that neighborhood it was great. I grew up there, and in the story it was split because my parents divorced. But Washington Heights was a great neighborhood, man. And there was a lot of Greeks there.
Yeah.
There was. Did you
St.
go to the
Spirit
movie
Church.
theater?
I went to the not the porno theater on Wadsworth Avenue. We didn't go there, but there was a lot of movie theaters. RKO on 181st Street.
Yeah, that's the one I was talking about.
Alois Paradise.
My uncle used to work at that deli right there.
Oh, he did. Really?
That deli. That was.
Dykeman Deli?
No, that's north. That's
No, that was on 180th and Broadway.
Oh, okay.
Between 180th and 181st. And the reason why I like that, because when he worked there, he was a teenager, and he used to give food to the ushers, sandwiches and stuff like that, when the ushers used to come in on their break. So they used to let us into the movie for free. So I can go see any movie in that movie theater whenever I wanted, because everybody knew my Uncle Dante.
And there was a beautiful theater at 175th and Broadway, which when I was a kid, it was Alois. And great theater, beautiful inside. And Reverend Ike,
I remember Reverend
TV
Ike.
evangelist,
That's
took it over. His people still own it. You know?
If you go, but the marquee, does it still say Reverend Ike when you go by there?
Yeah, I think so. It takes up the whole block from
That's
175, 176 from
He had a
Broadway to
TV
Wadsworth.
show, right, Reverend Ike?
He had a TV. He's one of the first, I think, TV evangelists.
Oh, wow.
But there's no more movies there, so we were ticked off.
He took over that whole theater from you, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
When I see the movie from the movie Malcolm X, when there's remember the attempted assassination when the guy said, "Get your hand out of my pocket," and the guy goes, "What?" And then the whole place ducks down. Did you ever see that Malcolm X the movie?
No, but I know he was killed in the neighborhood years, in Audubon Ballroom, not far from where I live.
That's in the
Because I always
3-2,
thought that it happened in the Reverend Ike theater.
It happened down about, if you're familiar with the neighborhood, it's right across from Columbia Presbyterian Hospital. They actually call the X Plaza in his memory, but he was killed right there in the Audubon Ballroom.
Okay, so
Probably 1965, and I remember that when it happened. They actually carried him right across the street into Columbia Press, but he was already dead at that point.
yeah, it's horrible. Okay, so what year did you get on the job?
I came on the job in November of 1979. Actually, shout out to my
79,
classmates.
wow.
We just had our 40th
You look
anniversary.
great.
He looks
Like, I had work done.
He looks young, man.
Yeah, I had some work done. I had my crow's feet
Nah,
done.
you
and,
didn't. I could tell.
Thank you. It's I look good on the outside anyway.
Yeah, that's how I am.
But we were the first class actually after the layoffs. So about 440 of us, which is a small
And the
class.
layoffs you're talking about, what in the 70s they laid off almost half the department, right?
Yeah, they didn't hire a cop in 5 years, and then the economy kind of turned around a little bit, and they hired us. And I think by the time
that flies in the face of the Irish culture, saying, "Take a civil service job.
Yeah.
Man. Be secure. You'll never get laid off."
They were-
Right?
and these guys got
It
laid off,
happens.
and some of them came back, as you know, and some of them didn't. And we were the first class, and they were just getting rid of these cars, these green and white cars, and they were getting these cars. But
we wanted
the
you
average,
to feel at home. We
Yeah,
were gonna
thank
write-
you.
We were
thank
going to
you.
write Yonkers. on
Like
the
I said,
side
I
of
was
that
born in the
place.
back of one of these, but the average cop in a radio car in 1979, I think, was 38 years old. Wow. So the job had gotten old, and we were only a handful coming out when you think about the grand scheme of things, spreading us out across the city. 440 cops, 40 were housing, 400 were NYPD. So we were kind of thrown into a precinct, and it was a whole different culture in the precinct at the time, where they looked upon us. It was post Serpico and everything with the NAP commission and corruption. So when we came on the job, all the old timers pretty much thought that we were rats who were wired, who were there to collect, to capture them doing bad things, and nothing could be further from the truth. We just want to learn how to do the job.
They wouldn't talk to you though.
Very seldom would they talk to you, and they all thought that we thought we were big shots. They all kind of made fun of us if we had college degrees or anything like that. And I
Forget
remember
about it back then,
old timers in a locker room were asking me if I had college. They said, "You got college?" And I said, "Yeah," but they made it sound like it was a disease. They said, like, "You have college?" I said, "Yeah, but I'm gonna get some ointment, get rid of it." But they wanted to make a point.
He's a pretty funny guy, right?
Well, I'm with two stand-up comedians. I gotta try to compete a little bit. But these guys made it sound like it was a detriment to be a college-educated person in the job, but they also wanted to send the message that, yeah, you're a college guy, but you're in the same locker room with us now, aren't you? So we're all standing there in our underwear debating this point, in the locker rooms.
We talked about that before. It's like when you came on, cops were in bad shape back then. They smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day. They drank coffee like it was lifeblood, and most of them drank a lot, right?
Yeah.
And then they were all financial advisors. Take a pension loan every 6 months. It's the best thing, right?
Well, I had guys that said, "Why don't you become a minister?" Remember those guys? They became
That's right.
They became phony ministers. They had no federal tax taken. They all got almost collared. Some of them, they all had to pay the money back. But there was guys that were like, "I'm a bishop in my church."
What are those guys called again? The ones they don't want to have a driver's license or
like Sovereign Nation.
Oh,
Sovereign Nation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those guys are great.
Yeah, these guys had no ideology behind them. They just wanted not to pay taxes.
Right,
I mean, there was no cause they were
There's
involved
always
in.
somebody trying to come up with a scheme of how to avoid paying taxes. Believe me, there's smarter people than you have figured out how to make everybody, except for the people that like Amazon and Al Sharpton and possibly the president that
Don't pay taxes.
don't pay.
They figured it out.
Yeah, yeah.
We
The smart
didn't.
people
We
figure it
didn't-
out.
We didn't figure
The
it out.
dopes over here.
We'll pay forever, you know?
So you came on in 1979, man. That must have been some time. The South Bronx back then was lit. Literally, the whole place was on fire. I'm sure. Were you still living? You obviously were still living in Washington Heights.
Still living in Washington Heights, and
then
went
we-
to the NSU Neighborhood Stabilization Unit 9. As you know, it's a kind of a training setup where you go in, you cover 4 precincts.
Right.
We
Chief,
basically were.
don't tap the table.
Oh, oops, sorry.
I give you an order. I'm a sergeant.
No, thank you,
know?
thank you, Sarge.
No,
Thanks.
because it comes over the mic.
Thanks for sharing that. But yeah, they just threw us into radio cars, and you were supposed to have so many foot posts. There was
So
not enough cops out there.
There was no there was no field training. They put you right out
there
to
was.
work.
They put you with. We had a great, FTO, field training officer, old detective. Really showed you the job. Like the
But they
academy
didn't
was
hold your
great.
hand in the beginning. Really,
No.
you had to get to work. Right
No,
away
these guys were
almost.
good. These guys were good. We had a great guy. Still bump into him every now and then. My old FTO, Bill Clark. Bill, if you're out there, good man.
That's not the NYPD Blue Bill Clark.
No. This guy.
I
Different
always
Bill
think
Clark.
about Serpico when you talk about that time in the police department. I always go back to the movie Serpico and how it's such a perfect movie to capture that time and how the police departments were back then, and the way he gets in and he's got his uniform over his shoulder, and he wants a locker, and the desk sergeant barely looks up at him. He's like, "Yeah, go upstairs." Like,
That's
it's
great. Yeah.
Nobody was happy to see you. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no welcoming party.
No, right.
Hey, thanks for coming.
Hey, kid, like,
Congratulations.
this is IBM. Come on up. We got your desk ready.
And as a young cop, the old lieutenant be on the desk. He'd be looking down his nose at his glasses, and he'd be writing forever. And I'm thinking, I'm new in the job. I'm like, what is he writing? What's all this writing going
Exactly.
on? But part of it was just an act. He didn't want to pay any attention to me. And he was hoping that when he looked up, I'd be gone away. And I'd still be there 20 minutes later. And I'd be like, what do you want? And they go back to writing again. So they were like really autocrats. They were like the captain of a ship. They ran the place, and you didn't dare go behind the desk, for God's sake.
No,
Forget
you had to
about
ask
it,
for you had to ask for permission.
You went behind the desk, you had to
Sarge,
excommunicate
permission
him.
to come behind the desk.
That's so violated now. Everyone comes
yeah.
behind the desk.
I remember
now. It's
asking
ridiculous.
Sarge permission to come behind the desk because you wanted to go grab a 28 or something,
right.
which is permission to take a day off,
Right.
which you handed to the same desk sergeant with the $5 bill attached to it. Hey, Sarge, here you go. I really need that day off.
it was a different-
It's my son's christening.
It's a different job.
But
back
you know,
then,
but
yes.
the older cops were definitely very protective of the younger cops. On the street, they would back
In
up.
time,
Once
yes,
you got
in the street,
once
yes.
you got
Yeah.
on the street.
That was a different story. Yeah.
But listen, that little attitude never changed. I mean, for the first 6 months that you're in a command, nobody really talks to you.
Right, that's
You're
true.
just in everybody's way.
Yeah.
They're watching you, and the people that came up to you and talked to you the most in the beginning were usually the ones that were ostracized by the command already.
That's right.
They were cops that worked there that nobody trusted, nobody liked, and now there's new people there, so now they have a chance to make friends again or have somebody to talk to. So they try to get the new guys on his side.
And you could see, like, if you were a fill-in guy back then, and there was one guy available to work with, that's the guy you're talking about. If nobody wanted to work with. He's probably a kook, or he's a nut, or he's a drunk, whatever it was. Now you're stuck with that guy for 8 hours.
Yeah,
and then
that's
I
it.
learned pretty quick, I'm going to go put somebody in handcuffs to get away from this guy.
Yeah,
So
that's my new partner. Unless I could, I'll take that foot poster today, Sarge.
I'll be back in half an hour with something, because I'm not staying no 8 hours with this nut.
There was a lot of nuts back then too. So you get into your command, which was the one that you said was the NSU 9, right?
Yep, covered the 4.6, the 4.7, the 5.0, and the 5.2. We were mostly in the 4.6 and the 5.2.
Did you come out like a bat out of hell making a lot of college?
Yeah, we like to make arrests. My partner and I, who stole my buddy, Timmy Muldoon, great guy, came from a police family. I did not, so we kind of...
Did you have a lot of brothers and sisters growing up?
I was the youngest of, I had two brothers and a sister. One of my brothers just passed away.
No, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. My condolences.
Sorry to hear. Did you guys sing Irish folk songs in the radio car together?
No. I'm Irish, but not that Irish. I mean, no.
So you guys got a car right away?
No, you know what? There was no cops up there, so you'd show up at the 4.6 and they'd just throw you in the car together.
Okay,
so we were
good.
blind leading the blind, but it worked out okay.
So you got it, and I'm sure the cars were in great shape, right?
Yeah, they're great shape. They're plush.
Well,
Air conditioned.
AC was cranking all the time.
I was wondering, what are we using these milk cartons, milk cartons,
milk
back
cartons,
for,
yeah,
to
yeah.
prop up the front seat? Yeah.
I remember this guy that I worked with. We got a brand new car, right? So he took his pen. It's a brand new car. He takes his pen and he jabs it right into the dashboard. Bang! bang, right there. Okay, we got a pen holder. Bang, right there. And from that point on, every time you took out his pen, you do your report, you put the pen right back in your pen holder.
And my partner Tim Muldoon, my good buddy to this day, he learned real quick. By the second week in the street, he had nothing on his gun belt. Everything was removed except his holster and maybe that little loop where the nightstick went in. He took everything off and he said, a successful day is when we don't put pen to paper. So he was handling disputes over the intercom. Don't make me come up there. Don't make me come up there. He was the best.
You guys had some of those Bronx tricks. They
you couldn't do that nowadays.
Oh, no, he was the best.
Good days when we don't put pen to paper. Oh, my God.
I think Tim invented the term, the job sucks. And he didn't really mean it. He say it all the time. Like, we have a training sergeant coming out and he wants to sign our books. I guess the sergeant was told, you got to go out and identify with these guys and deal with them and interact with them. So the sergeant pulls up on a foot post, and he was kind of a stiff. He pulls up and he's got a clipboard, and he goes, hello, Edmund. And how are you today? He was very scripted. So I said, oh, I'm good. I just want to get him out of here. Yeah, good, Sergeant. Everything's fine. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Scratch and signs my book. And my buddy, Tim Muldoon, his formal first name is Austin. Nobody calls him Austin. We all call him Tim for some reason. His family calls him Tim. So, again, the sergeant goes, so, Austin, what do you think of the police department? So Muldoon's a funny guy. To this day, he's a very funny guy. And I know what he's going to say, but I'm going like kind of telepathically, like, don't say it, don't say it. And sure enough, he salutes and he goes, the job sucks, Sarge. So the sergeant goes, really? So he's writing all kinds of notes down about Muldoon, like, renegade, irrational, whatever he's writing down. So I'm trying to defend it. I said, oh, he's only kidding, Sergeant. Oh, is that right? Now he's writing on my folder, like bad things about me now, because I'm defending Muldoon. But Muldoon is quite the character. And the sergeants back then, like I said, they were not bad guys, but this guy was, again, I guess he was forced to interact with us, and he wasn't a very warm and fuzzy guy to begin with. So,
how did you guys handle domestic violence cases back then?
It's. I look back on it now, and the job at the time, we were basically bouncers.
Yeah.
We would go to apartments, and we would tell some guy, get out. If he resisted a little bit, and there was cops there, then he wanted to fight a little bit. He didn't always get arrested, but he wanted to fight.
He got lumped up.
He got accommodated, and but then we were like taking his keys out of his pocket. I mean, basically, it was almost like a robbery when you think about it. We're there pulling keys out of this guy's pocket, taking him out of his own house.
So he don't come back home.
And he comes back, the next day, and so it was accomplishing nothing when you think about it.
Right.
But that's the way the job was now. Now it's swung completely the other way, I think. So, but back then, it wasn't a really successful domestic violence program for the police department.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
And then when you make boss and you go to a scene, it's like you're afraid to walk away from the scene, right? Because if someone gets killed,
yeah, but wait.
Right?
When did you? So you stayed in NSU, and then where did you go to work? When did you became a sergeant first, obviously. But where did you go to work after that?
It's funny. I was living in Manhattan at the time, again, Washington Heights, and all the orders come down. We're all getting transferred to our precincts, to our so-called permanent commands, and all my buddies are all going to precincts. And I'm not even in the orders. So I look, me and nine other, sorry souls, we got sent to the Manhattan traffic area, Traffic Division.
Oh, wow.
Working out of 30th Street. Horrible. I mean, listen, they're nice guys. Some of them are nice guys, but not what you want to send a young cop.
No.
That's not what you wanted to do.
So we get sent there, and they greet us by saying, welcome to your last command. So it's kind of disheartening
because no one leaves there, right?
Nobody and there's guys that wanted to go there, but they picked us because we lived in Manhattan. They don't do us a favor, and they're saying, "Kid, relax. You got a detail." I go, "I didn't want this detail. I don't want any detail. I want to go to a precinct."
Yeah, you wanted to answer radio calls and learn the job from the ground up.
But I learned a valuable lesson there. They said, "You're not leaving. Make sergeant, you'll leave, but you're not leaving." And even if you get somebody to take your place, they go, "We don't want him. We want you. What do you want me for?" You had to direct traffic, and you had to write parking tickets. And these guys down there were like parking ticket machines. I mean, some of them were writing 75, 80 tickets a day in various precincts. So we said, I learned a valuable lesson. Me and my partner at the time, Barry Laddie, good guy, still my buddy to this day, we basically said, because we're young cops, not too bright, we said, we're not doing anything. We're not going to do it. We're not going. If we don't write tickets, they have to get rid of us. Mm-hmm. Well, they kept us the longest. So they said, "Nuh-uh, you're gonna." So at the end, we wrote some tickets, and I was putting a request for transfer in every month, and anywhere, Harlem, Bronx, Brooklyn, anywhere.
To go to a precinct.
Go to a precinct.
The shittiest precinct.
I wasn't asking for anything. So finally, I'm the ninth guy of 10 that they're finally releasing. My buddy Barry was louder about it than me. They kept him longer than me. Valuable lesson for both of us. So I finally get my orders. You go into the 32nd precinct. These guys in traffic, they were so detached from the police department. They said, "Where's that?"
Oh my.
I said, "It's uptown." Uptown? What do you want to go there for? It's crazy up there. There's people shooting at people up there. So then they were like, "You'll be back. You'll be sorry. You're making a bad move. You'll be back."
Well, when you go to a detail right up front like that, and you're not really doing police work, you're not answering the radio, you're not making collars. A lot of these guys, you stay there too long, you're scared to move on anywhere else because you don't know what to do. You're going to go to a place, and you got 5-6 years on the job, and you have 5 arrests.
Yeah.
There's legendary what these guys, and they weren't all bad guys, but they were so detached from police work. And a guy would tell a story, an old timer, good guy, old timer. He says he's directing traffic onto Delancey Street, and he said a guy walks up to him and says, "Excuse me, where's the 7th precinct?" So he goes, "Oh, it's right down there on Pitt Street." He goes, "Thank you." He turns around, he goes, "He's got a screwdriver sticking out of his back." So the guy and we said, "What did you do?" He goes, "He went to where the precinct was. I showed him where the precinct was." Like, that's how detached from police work they were. They weren't going to say, like, get an ambulance or write a 60.
We had a rumor. I worked in the task force when I was young on the job too, and the rumor was that some guy came up to this cop that we worked with. And he goes, "I just got shot." And he goes, "Where?" And the guy lifts up his shirt, and there was a little bit of smoke coming out of this tiny little hole in him because it was in the middle of winter. You could see the smoke coming out. And then he goes, "Did you call 911?" And he's in a radio car.
On the traffic headquarters on 30th Street, it's old, kind of looks like a castle. Right? Not far from
I've
Madison Square
seen that
Garden.
place,
Beautiful building. It's a beautiful building. But there was guys there on the late tour, and all they did was they locked the door and they counted all the parking tickets all day.
Oh, yeah.
So they said like a duty captain, separate from the traffic command, comes to the door, and it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, and the door's locked. Now he's banging on the window, and a guy in a flannel shirt, like his Venetian blinds, looks out the window. "What do you want?" "The captain, in uniform." And he goes, "Let me in." He goes, "No, we're closed." He's telling an on-duty captain in uniform, "We're closed." So they were a little separated from the police
Yeah,
department.
I could see that.
You know what that reminds me of? When I think it was Manhattan North, when they used to have that place right on, I think it was up a little bit past the 128th Street and Broadway. What was that? Manhattan? Was Homicide there? They used to have to ring a bell. They used to have to ring a bell, and they couldn't catch anybody sleeping.
Yeah.
So they used to have to wait until somebody was going inside the door, then running right behind them, hold it, So you'd be sitting in the car for a half hour. "Officer, hold on," and then he'd run in with you.
Right.
And it was just to catch the people up there who were sleeping.
And it's funny, the flip side of that is now later in my career, I become a boss, and maybe I'm an inspector, and I'm doing like a patrol duty coverage where you got to cover all the precincts, and you're in uniform, riding around, signing books and stuff. And if I pulled up in front of a precinct, I would give the cop that's standing in front of the door time to go inside and tell the sergeant I'm outside.
You're on the way.
Oh, yeah,
So-
that makes sense, though.
and-
Everybody did that. There was a phone call that followed.
I was remember the 111 precinct, nice guys, young kids standing in front of the door, and I would do it all the time. I'd stop at the 111, I'd have my little clipboard, I'd wave to him, he'd wave back at me, he wouldn't go inside. I'd stay there for 5 minutes, I'm writing, then finally I gotta go in.
Right.
And the poor sergeant or lieutenant would be on the desk, he'd have his back to the wall, feet up, reading the newspaper like this, and he'd go, "Oh," and somebody'd yell attention, and he's going, "Oh,
Stupid.
sorry." And I'm like, does the guy outside not like you? Why wouldn't he come in? I'm waiting outside for him to come in and warn you that I'm coming. But
Common sense, right?
common sense. That common sense is lacking a bit, I
That's
find.
the Queens Marines.
Well,
I know you're saying everyone's a good guy, but they're not all good fucking
well,
guys.
this guy just didn't get it. He just didn't get it that, I'm here. If I want to sneak up on him, I'll sneak up on him. But it wasn't my nature.
So to get out of there, what you decided to do was take the sergeant's test?
Well, no, we had to, prostitute ourselves and write some tickets, and we finally got our wishes granted, and that's when I went to the 3-2. It was the best move, probably of my career. It was a great place, great cops.
3-2 is Harlem.
It is Central Harlem from 127th up to the Polo Grounds houses, like 159th Street, from
It's a nice,
St. Nick to
nice stretch of area
to
there, right?
Fifth. Yeah, it's plush.
Who was the CO back then?
Plush,
Do you remember?
It's funny. The CO was not a bad guy. He was Deputy Inspector Tom Coyne, who had red hair. So of course the cops nicknamed him Agent Orange.
Well, I think his daughter was on the job, and she was a sergeant in the Queens Task Force.
Is that right?
I think so, because she was a redhead, and her last name was Coyne too.
Yeah. He had really bright red hair. Not
Yeah,
a bad
so did
guy.
she.
Not
There's
a bad
probably
guy.
She's a nice-
400
she
coins on the NYPD, though. I
Yeah.
bet. That's like Murphy.
She was
Almost.
She was a nice sergeant. So, what makes you take the sergeant's test then? Since you're happy, you're in the 3-2, and you're doing what you wanted to do.
Yeah, the 3-2 was great. We worked the old 9 squad charts. He did a midnight a week of midnights every 6 weeks, and I hooked up with my partner Brian Murphy, who's still my buddy to this day. We decided to like make arrests, so we went
Did he retire as a lieutenant?
He did, yeah.
I think he was in the building with us at 3280 Broadway.
He was, yep.
Did he go to Buff State?
He went to Buff State.
Yeah, I
He
did
played
too.
lacrosse.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the building I'm talking about.
That's it.
3280, yeah.
That's it. Brian, good guy. So we both, after a couple of months, you know, when you approach somebody about being your partner, it's almost like asking somebody to go to prom.
Isn't that so cool? We've never covered that, Bill.
What's that?
But the thing about when you ask somebody to be your partner, that's a great thing. He said it's like asking somebody
Yeah,
to
it's
go
like,
to
you know, what do you want?
go to prom.
Want to work together? I don't know. You want,
Checking you out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're looking him up and down.
it's kind of like, and he was a kid from Levittown. I was this, you know, city kid, so we kind of meshed pretty well.
Ed,
and,
where'd you get that one EPD from? What did you do? I want to make sure you're a warrior like me.
That's right. Yeah. And we had a guy with 3 too. He was a bad guy, but anytime he got an EBD, he would stack them, like these little medals
You
you get
can't
in
do
his
that,
bars.
man.
And this thing was up by his nose.
Right.
If he turned this way, but he had like 5 EPDs, and he put like a pistol shot and some other things in there. So it was up over his ears.
Like if you're
But what you're trying to explain right now is the pish. First of all, an EPD, you could put all of them together.
supposed
at
to
one
have a
time.
number on them.
Yeah. Like, so you could consolidate them, so you can get the real medals. And then the pistol shot is something that you get in the range just for qualifying. And then there's the commensurate, like the 1976 or something, or 1980
Yeah,
World Game
bicentennial,
pin.
yeah.
So you get that one in.
Oh, he had everyone, and then sadly he goes. There's some crazy job, some big dispute, and there's like 8 cops in a place, and there's a big fight, and they lock people up. Now the whole building's ticked off. This guy goes back to the precinct and says one of his EPDs fell off. He goes to his partner. We got to go back and get it.
Oh,
He goes,
God.
"Are you crazy? They're going to kill us in that building. We got to go back. I'll buy you another one." But,
They're like 50 cents for those.
oh
ribbons.
God.
Yeah,
But he-
if you see someone that's really like into the metal thing,
Yeah.
and they see a guy like that, they'll be like, "Hey, dude, come here."
Oh, yeah.
Right? They'll get pissed.
they would
right?
call it a board. Hey, your board is not right. Fix
Yeah,
your board.
yeah,
fix your
that.
board.
You got to have a 5. You can't have 5 EPDs. What are you kidding me? They
But
would get
yeah,
mad. They would
but
get-
we did wind up partnering up together after a little courtship, I guess you'd call it.
That's so. I love that. That what you said though. That's great. That figuring out whether you can partner up. Some of it has to do with, do you like sports? What type of music? Because you're in the car. I worked with a guy one night, and his partner was out. So was mine. And the Knicks were playing. I remember they were playing the Bulls. It was the playoffs. It was when basketball.
when the
was
Knicks were
shit.
good.
Yeah. So I said, I'm turning on the game. And he goes, no, I can't listen to it. I said, why not? You don't like the Knicks? He goes, no, I love the Knicks. I said, so what's the problem? He goes, it makes me crazy. I said, well, then I'll listen to it on my side of the car. So I switched it, and he goes, no, it's all right. So literally, it's tip-off. The game just starts. Tip-off, Michael Jordan gets the ball passed to him, flies down the courts, slam dunks it, and the guy, he goes, fuck! And he smashes his head in the side of the radio car, the window. We're sitting inside, the driver's side. Bang! Like this. I'm like, yo, this is going to be a long game right now.
Oh, man.
The first 2 points, you know basketball. It goes back and forth for 3 hours. The end. I was like, oh, this is going to be a long game. I had him drop me off.
By the end of the game, he must have looked like E.T., you know?
Man. The things. You know what's also funny? I get this vision in my head of when you walk into a new command, the roll call, and nobody knows you yet. And they all kind of sort of like looking at you, sizing you up. You know, what was the phone call that followed you there? You know, that led you to there. You know what I'm saying? There's always that who this guy is and why is he coming there. And,
We did the homework.
But the worst is when they say, "You're DeMeo."
Oh, yes, yeah.
yeah. And it's like really, it's a it's all. It used to be all men there, but it's a very alpha thing. You know what I'm saying? All the other animals checking you out, like who is this guy? And it's a tough situation to walk in because everybody's got to, you have to be tough. So you're walking into a room of tough people to begin with.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a sense of humor, a wise ass thing to say.
And the 3-2 had good old timers there, good mix of guys. And I used to kid around a little bit. Like I came on November of '79, so I did like 7 weeks in the 70s, technically, in that decade.
Yeah.
So I would be with these, and now these guys have, one side of the room, they've killed 9 people in the precinct, and they came on, they're Vietnam guys, they kill people there, they kill people here, they kill people everywhere, and I'm sitting with them, and I'm lamenting to them, kidding around, going, guys, these young cops, they don't get it. They're not 70s cops like us.
I guess.
And these guys would ask me a few questions. Yeah, I came on in the 70s, like you guys. When did you come on? November '79. Go sit with them. Get away from us.
Yeah, they
That
said that
lunchroom.
1969 class of the NYPD was like, oh my God, they all just came back from Vietnam, right?
Yeah.
And they were like scary guys.
Some of them were
right?
great cops. They were great cops, but
Yeah.
they were, they didn't suffer fools well.
No.
Oh yeah, they didn't suffer. Well, how long did it take you to become sergeant? How many years did you have on before you decided to?
I had just about 5 years on. So
That's good. That was quick.
I was babyface sergeant, and back then when you made sergeant, they sent you to.
How old were you?
I was 11. No, I was like 28,
Hey, Mark,
29,
we
I
have to
guess.
take him to the clubs. He's got good stand-up material, man.
No, I would freeze, trust me. But I looked very young, and back then the job would send you to, allegedly, to go to a precinct for 6 months where you make all your mistakes, and then you go to your permanent command where you
Right.
make no mistakes. So of
You're
course,
talking about as a sergeant.
as a sergeant. So I go to the 4-8 precinct in the Bronx, which was also the borough command. So all the borough bosses are right upstairs,
Right.
which the 4-8 was a good place to work, but having the borough upstairs was a pain in the ass. Because they come down.
Ed, let me just
everything.
stop you for 1 second. I worked in the 2-4, and that was the borough. When you're on the desk, you'd always get this prick upstairs. Why is there a dog tied to my pole on my parking space? And you'd be
Oh,
like,
yeah.
are you fucking kidding
Yeah.
me, right?
In the 4-8, there'd be a dead guy in his parking space.
Yeah,
But they'd still call with mindless stuff. Excuse me, one chief. I knew his office. There was a chief upstairs, rest his soul. But he had these like Louvre windows. You had to kind of roll them like this, and they would open like that. I didn't even know how he got his head out the window, but he could look out the window somehow. Maybe he had a mirror or something, and he'd say like, "Sergeant, there are officers downstairs speaking to a female at the gas pumps. Investigate that and get back to me forthwith." And old bosses love saying forthwith for everything.
Right.
I want a chicken palm hero forthwith. Everything was forthwith. So I'm looking, and it was some woman got lost on the cross Bronx asking for directions, but he wanted a complete investigation about why these guys was chatting with this woman. Because I thought they were engaging in unnecessary conversation.
God.
For those of you who don't know what that means you're not really supposed to be talking to civilians, let alone females, let
Yeah.
alone attractive ones,
Laying a rap
while
on
you're in uniform.
by the
And-
gas pumps.
I think sadly the chief, no females paid any attention to the chief. So I think he
What
was
was
a
it
little
called?
upset that,
What'd you say it was? No, what kind of conversation was that?
Unnecessary.
Unnecessary.
Unnecessary conversation.
Which
So
is
you're
actually-
bullshitting. They
it's
didn't want you
actually something
bullshitting.
You could actually write somebody a command discipline.
And then
for
fire-
unnecessary
I met my
conversation.
wife at Lincoln Center when I was in uniform.
Unnecessary conversation.
Unnecessary conversation.
Got me married.
Got a lot of people married. Unnecessary conversations. It's the blue magnet, man. It forces a lot of unnecessary conversations.
That's right,
that
man.
blue magnet.
That's right.
So how quick did you rise up the ranks there? Once you became a sergeant, then obviously there's a lieutenant, there's captain.
Yeah, I was a sergeant for probably 4 or 5 years. Again,
How much college did you have?
I got college.
So you got
like
a
that
BA?
ailment I told you about.
No, you got a bachelor's.
I came out with a bachelor's. I went to Fordham.
Oh, that's a good school.
Oh,
Good
man,
school.
You could have made something with
Irish
yourself.
guys
I
go to
snuck in
Fordham.
somehow. I got in.
You could have made something with yourself.
And later in life, while I was still in the job, I got a master's from Marist in
that's
public
great.
administration. Yeah, so,
Oh, that was one of those NYPD masters. You went to the police academy.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember
But the
that.
diploma doesn't say NYPD
No,
master on it. you know.
Don't listen.
It doesn't.
This is the NYPD masters. This one doesn't count.
And it was a lot cheaper than the real masters. So anyway,
Go to the academy every third Saturday.
every Monday night
All right.
for 2.5 years.
What
Every Monday
what a
night,
deal that was.
missed
man.
all those football games
That's right.
thanks to that.
What
But,
a deal that was.
but
So you're rising up through the ranks then.
I had a blessed career. I really did. I had people looking out for me too.
You caught the test on time. That means it didn't take that many. You got promoted, and then it wasn't such a big gap.
Yeah. I got promoted lieutenant in 1989, and like 9 months later, I got to take the captain's test, which you can't do these days. So,
Oh yeah, that's impossible. You can't
Yeah.
do
So
that. now.
would cops in the NYPD say his balls were dipped in butter? Would they say that?
No, he worked for it.
I never heard that. But
Nah, he went up the ranks.
I know he did. I just
was
had to
blessed.
use that expression. See if he knew.
I know, but I'm just saying it's he went up. He actually took the test. You got to
pass
pass
the test. He's a smart guy, man.
You don't need to hook you. And
Most
once you pass the test and you're getting promoted, then if your balls are dipped in butter, then you can go wherever you want. But you got to take the test first.
I
But then he
gotta tell
wound
you.
up in some nice spots, though. So maybe his balls were dipped in butter.
I tell you what, I have a whole new perspective
Were
on butter now.
were your
Thank you very
balls
much.
dipped in butter or not? So no.
Wow, I'm getting off butter now. I'll tell you that.
So when you become a lieutenant, where do you go?
You know what? I was working for Bill Taylor, who was an early friend and mentor to me. I just talked to him the other night. He asked me to be his ICO. So he
Are you
was
still friends now?
Yeah.
Everybody, did you notice everybody?
He was chief of
That's
Manhattan
great.
detective.
No,
He
but you
was,
know what's
yeah,
great
yeah.
about you is that this is how you can tell a really good person is if they still have relationships with the people in their past. And you're not even aware of this, but every single you said after every single person you mentioned, we're still friends to this day.
Yeah.
And
it's true.
that's a beautiful thing. Not many people say that.
I'm blessed with good
He
friends
speaks
for many, many years.
a lot of Irish colloquialisms.
Whenever you talk to somebody
too,
and they start with, I don't talk to him anymore. What's up with her? And I haven't heard from them in a while. And
Fuck
fuck
him.
them. Stay away from that person. You're going to have a problem with them.
Well, they say we used to
sorry.
be friends, yeah.
But, so you the guy Taylor.
Bill Taylor
Bill Taylor.
took care of me. He was the commanding officer of the Applicant Processing Division.
Oh, that's a crown
God.
ball right there.
He asked me to be his ICO, which I kind of thought, well, it was going to be a means to an end. Like, I went there saying, okay, I want to get to the Detective Bureau or to narcotics. I'll do 2 years with you. He goes, 2 years, we'll be out of there.
We're in the 105?
Well, that was one of the offices. There was a citywide unit, so they were spread out all over the city.
Okay, because that's where I used to have to go.
And
But that's the
we were there
land
4
of
years
the-
later together. But
That's the land of the contract, too. I can't imagine how many times your phone was ringing.
it rang a lot.
Oh, my God,
And a
yeah,
lot of
the-
times it was guys saying, hey, they're messing with my kid. Now, I got the kid's folder in front of me, and I'm looking like, arrest.
That's a kid
Heroin.
who's trying to get on the job.
Heroin, cocaine. I'm like,
And then there's there's somebody on the other end, family from that person that
It's calling you.
they're on the job. And they're calling you, saying they're messing with my
they're
kid, and
screwing
you're
my
looking.
kid.
You're
I'm
looking at
this
the
guy,
folder like
he's like a violent nightmare trying to come on the job, and I'm going, and I can't tell because the kid said a lot of this stuff in confidence, and maybe he doesn't want to become a cop, but his father's making him become a cop. So I'd say, talk to your son. I don't got to talk to my son. I'm talking to you. I go, well, I'm talking to you. Talk to your son. They're gonna have an interesting dinner time conversation that night. I said, but they're not messing with him. Trust me. What are you trying to tell me? My kid's a bad kid? No. I may say you're a bad father, perhaps, but no. But I didn't say that. I just said talk to your kid. But I used to get a lot of those phone calls.
Well, did you get to see all the psychological profiles where they asked you to draw the house? Remember that one?
Oh, the house and the
See
and the
guy with-
tree.
yeah, the tree.
Stick figure.
Put
And
a dog in the backyard, have smoke coming out of the chimney, so it looks like a happy home. right?
again, my buddy Muldoon comes out. He goes, is it bad that I made my stick figure a naked guy? I told you, Muldoon's a character.
So you're working an applicant investigation, and you're the ICO there.
I was the ICO there.
So you're looking at of all the detectives and the cops. That was a way to get promoted for detective, right?
It was a good place to work, but I look back, I had some great commands, great jobs. Some of the best jobs I had was being an anti-crime cop in the 32nd
that's the
Precinct.
best.
I was the SNU, the Street Narcotic Enforcement Unit Sergeant in the 4-6.
Yeah, because the applicant
great
thing is like a
places.
temporary stop. Nobody wants to be there, really.
Nobody wants to be there
What years
permanently.
were you there in that?
Guys,
I was there like 89 to 92, I guess.
That's when I was coming through.
Yeah, you subbed me
Yeah,
through the
how'd
cracks,
you get-
obviously.
My guy was he was cool. He was cool, my applicant guy. It's just the only thing, he had a wandering eye. So he'd be talking to me, and the other eye would be I don't know. He would be a great detective because he could always see what's going on. But I was always trying to catch up. Like, what is he looking at over there? And he's talking to me.
Do you remember his name?
I don't want to say. Yeah, I do remember. His name.
All right, we'll talk.
He was a nice guy.
I'm sure he's a good guy.
He was a transit guy.
I think you should get his folder. We'll bring it here next.
I've
show.
already looked at his folder. It's actually, I looked at volume 1.
It's a thin jacket.
I looked
It's
at
a thin
volume 1 of his
jacket. I was a
folder.
good kid. And then also you were in charge of like sending people out to knock on the neighbors' doors
Oh, yeah.
and ask the questions about, one of the applicants. How is this person as a neighbor? Did you ever see them doing stuff? That was scary.
That was scary.
I can't believe the people in my neighborhood vouch for me.
That was.
They probably just wanted to get
Do
me
they,
out of
do
there.
they still do that?
They still do. Actually, it's funny. There's retired guys now that actually do it. I know a guy that does it. You can do it like as a part of a waiver, as long as you don't make more than $30,000. It doesn't affect your pension.
I want to do that.
So there's guys that go out that do that. They give them a department car. They show up at a precinct and they go out and they do field visits and they love it.
I would do that.
They
I would
love
do that
it.
now.
I don't know. I'm not looking to do it. but
Fuck
they-
this podcast. So then how long did you become captain? In 9 months?
Yeah, I took the test in 9 months, but then I finally went back to narcotics. I was an undercover in narcotics briefly early in my career.
How the
it was
hell did you
great.
buy
Where? Yeah,
drugs?
what were you doing?
1983, you could buy drugs in uniform, pretty much. So.
Oh yeah, those were the
I
good
put
old
on
days.
My buddy gave me a Con Ed shirt. It's amazing how much drugs a Con Ed guy could buy. So, I bought a lot of drugs wearing a Con Ed
Where did you
shirt.
buy them in the Heights?
UPS,
We
right?
actually bought them in the Bronx, believe it or not, and in the Lower East Side. They were doing this pressure point stuff.
Oh,
on the
yeah,
Lower
I
East Side,
remember
so you
that,
could in the Lower East Side.
Alphabet City was bad back
It's funny.
then,
You go
right?
down there, I'd wear like a flannel shirt. I grew my hair a little bit long, and you get on a line, and there'd be like an abandoned storefront. And like the gate would be down, the gate would come up, and the guy would come in, and he would do everybody real quick, like sell drugs to everybody real quick. So I'm on the line, and they didn't have radios or Kells back then. You had to go back to a car, get a radio. So I'm on line one time, and there's a guy like kind of managing the line, and he's a ball buster. So he's got either a sawed-off baseball bat or half a pool cue, and he's poking all us junkies because I'm posing as a junkie. And I got fake tracks on my hands and stuff, and he's poking us hard. And I'm like, and so you want to go and he wants to see who might be a cop because he figures the cop's not going to take that. So he gives me a good couple of pokes. I'm like, okay, man, okay, I'm just doing the docile junkie thing, and so I go back, and I tell the guys in the team. Now the guys in the team were hard hitters. I said, listen, be careful. I'll give my descriptions. Be careful of the guy, managing the line. He hit me with a stick a couple of times. Oh, he did he?
Uh-huh.
And then you'd have to go by again to make an idea of who they're grabbing and make sure they got the right guy. Uh-huh. And I go by, this guy is knocked unconscious.
Oh, the guy was poking you with a
The
stick?
guy was poking, and his stick is laying next to him. So it's kind of like, live by the sword, die by the sword kind of thing. So
That's so interesting, man.
yeah, so I got a little revenge,
You painted
by
a nice
extension,
picture
kinda.
there. That was a nice picture standing on the line.
Would you sell drugs to this man?
Well, like you said, it was 1983.
I had a pretty good line,
You could buy drugs in uniform back then.
They would ask you, who sent you here? Flacco.
That's a good name.
There's always a Flacco involved somewhere.
There's always a
right.
Flacco.
There's always
yeah.
Flacco involved somewhere. Which Flacco? Which Flacco? The skinny one.
There's a skinny Flacco.
Skinny Flacco.
Which Flacco? Skinny Flacco.
Yeah.
So now you become a captain.
Well, I was a lieutenant narcotics, then I become a captain, and then
Then the party's over?
one of the highlights of my career, I go to the 24th precinct in Upper Manhattan.
I used to work in the
I'm the
24th.
second in command of the precinct. The late Jack McDermott, rest his soul, is the commanding officer. And who do I get to meet? Bill Cannon.
Oh, Bill Cannon.
It worked.
All that
out.
other stuff I talked about, the great stuff of my career, and all the good friends, pales by comparison.
He was a shooting star, right?
When I finally meet Bill
I was the
Cannon.
Bill was a
anti-crime
shooting
sergeant.
star, right?
Bill Cannon. Yeah, he was. When he was awake. He did a lot of good work there. But
He was,
Jack
he was definitely a rising star in the police department. And
highly regarded.
Well, you should have seen when I went to the 2. What year were you in the 2-4?
I guess the first 6 months of '95. I guess I was there.
All right, because when I went to the 2-4, man, I was in warrants having the time of my life. It was the best time I ever had on the job. And then once Carrick left, they wanted to downsize it because he had built it up to like. So now they were down in the squad, so we had to go backfill the squads. And you never seen more miserable people, man. I don't know why they did it. You had a bunch of people in narcotics that probably would have went to squads happily, but we were like, oh man. When I got to the 2-4, man, there was nothing more depressing than having to be in the squad. And he just hated everything I hated everything about the job for 5 years. It's not what I didn't bust my ass to go there. I busted it to go to warrants.
Right.
And I was having a grand time, and now we're someplace that you didn't want to be.
Being a squad detective is a lot of work.
Yeah, especially in the 2-4, man. The 2-4 was kind of like it was busier than I ever wanted it to be.
And the 2-4 has everything. Like you guys, you talked about in your first episode. The one side of the 2-4 precinct, 86th Street, you have millionaires, movie stars. The other side, you have Manhattan Valley, a lot of crime, a lot of drugs. Cop was killed there. Chris Hoban was killed there. I mean, you had everything in the 2-4, everything in between.
And that good pizzeria too. There was at Sal and Carmine's.
Yeah.
Is that what it's called, Sal and Carmine?
I think it was
V&T.
Sal's maybe. Or, yeah.
I think it's Sal and Carmine's.
On 104 in Broadway.
Yeah.
You talking about?
Yeah, that place is still.
was
I don't know what if it's still there. But.
I was way too busy to eat.
Yeah, I bet you were, right? So I would imagine as you're rising through the ranks, your jokes are getting even funnier, right?
Yeah, guys do it a lot more.
They
Funny.
laugh at your jokes more
big
the
time.
higher your
Big
rank
time.
is. That's for sure.
Yeah,
Big time.
you can sharpen that uniform.
Yeah, sure I was.
Were you a member of the Emerald Society?
I was the Emerald Society delegate in the 3-2.
And you're not like a pipe player or anything?
No,
like that. You don't do
I'm
that
not.
shit, right?
I can play the
I would
jukebox.
tell you, I went to one Emerald Society meeting when I first came on, and it was right after. Remember the 83 sergeants test? They had all the quotas and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Some cop says at the Emerald Society meeting, he goes, "I think we should be granted minority status too." And the head of the Emerald Society goes, "Why?" He goes, "Because we have small dicks." That was the last Emerald
God.
Society meeting I ever
We have a
went
check. We'll take a check, please.
to. Isn't that great?
That's a
That
good.
was pretty funny. I always remember that to this day.
We can't even top that. I mean,
So did you have ambition to rise all the way to the top through the department?
I didn't. When I came on the job first, I didn't know. I had no family in the job. I had no idea how you advance in the job. So I'm looking. I see sergeants. Most of them had like gray hair, and I'm kind of going to some guy like, where do they come from? And they said, oh, you take a test. Like, I thought they came on the job as sergeants. I didn't know. I thought they grew them like in a hothouse or something. Like these guys were sergeants, So I said, take a test. I said, I'm not a genius, but you have enough. Give me the stuff. I'll study it and I'll pass it. I may not be at the top of the list, but I'll pass it. So I found that I could take a test. As long as they gave me enough time, I could take a test and probably come out, maybe not at the top, but close enough to get promoted. And I said, hey, as long as they give me a shot at it, I'm going to do okay. I wasn't arrogant about it, but I studied. I went to the classes. I put my material together.
How many years did you have on when you made captain?
I made captain in the end of '94. So I had like 14 years on.
That's relatively
Yeah,
fast.
that's pretty good time.
Pretty fast, right?
That's a good time. Usually it happens around the 20th.
And I got blessed. Like I said, I got promoted. Then I went back to narcotics. Actually, again, Bill Taylor asked me to come to narcotics. I went back to Manhattan South Narcotics.
As a captain.
As a captain. Took over from the previous captain who was, he'll remain nameless, but the worst boss I ever worked for in the police department.
You must have
By
been a
far.
good boss, though. I mean,
I like to think I was fair.
Sounds to me like how could people not like you?
Yeah. Oh, you get to know me. It'll come.
Mark,
I mean,
we always say you're not for everyone. You're
Listen,
everyone has
this
that.
is a good
Not
man
everyone
right
could
here.
like you.
You could tell already. And so you obviously, do you have anybody that you recall that you worked with? Not a boss, but that was working under you. That was a freaking big pain in the ass. That
Yeah. I can
you
think
couldn't get him to.
I think of one
to
guy.
fly straight.
And again, I'm not a tough guy when it comes to the discipline and stuff like that. But there was one guy that I bumped into when I was a precinct commander, who was like just stunad. He didn't get it, and he was the combination. He was like, he led in civilian complaints. He never made arrests. He didn't write tickets. He just broke everybody's chops. He was mean. He was rude. He was everything. The whole package.
It was a boss fighter too. I
And
bet, right?
every time I had to do something to him, I warned him ahead of time. If you don't straighten out, I'm doing this. Change his tour. You can't do that to me. Change his tour. And anything that he did, I told him ahead of time that it was coming. And he never straightened out. So to this day, I look upon this guy. He's the benchmark. He's the low point of whenever I think of like a really bad, dumb cop, and I love cops, this guy's name comes
What was
to
his
mind.
problem? Just a douche?
He just had a bad attitude. He never should have come on this job.
Yeah.
He would kind of pride himself like he doesn't like people.
Oh, he prided himself in that.
That's like a guy who owns a pizza shop saying he doesn't like mozzarella.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you can't be a cop and not like
Yeah.
people. It has to be. That was the one thing that got me through the job is that I like people. I didn't like really police work, but I like people.
And if you're out there, you know who I'm talking about.
And you know who
He
you
listen,
are.
trust me, he has no ambition to even listen to anything to do with police work, so he's not going to be listening to off the cuff, trust
When
me.
you got promoted, did you ever want to get revenge against any boss that did you when you were a cop?
No, I mean, I had mostly good bosses. I mean, the only guy, you know what they say, that the old saying about the best revenge is living well?
Yeah.
That's
The guy
true.
who I took over from Manhattan South as a captain, he was a fellow captain now. And for some reason, he had 4 lieutenants, and he tortured all of us. It wasn't just me. He tortured everybody. And I was on the captain's list. So it wasn't like I was being a tough guy, but I'm going to be a captain in a year, pal.
Right.
So and I didn't tell him that, but he even, at one point, I think he even wanted me to hit him. I'm not a violent guy. But he was kind of like, hey, you don't like this, and maybe someday, you want to do something about it. And I said, no. I said, I'll do something about it down the road, maybe. He goes, are you threatening me? I said, no, but someday we'll meet again, and perhaps we'll talk. That's as close to a threat I got. But then it turns out I wound up getting his job. Then a year and a half later, the DEA task force, the prestigious elite DEA task force comes up. I was kind of a dark horse. Put my name in. He wanted the job. I got it.
Yeah.
I get promoted to deputy inspector like a year later. He doesn't.
Did you call him?
And then what was great about it was, no, he had an office in the same building as me.
Oh, that's for nice
And he
revenge.
actually came to the same coffee pot as
Well, the
me.
Italians say
What a
revenge
douche.
is a dish best served cold, right?
Yeah.
You served
And I
it
won't
cold.
give you his name, but his first name was Richard. He went by Richie. So when I saw him at the coffee pot, he'd go, "You've done okay for yourself." And I'd say, "I had great role models, Dick." So you don't have to lay hands on a guy. You know,
Right,
you
he
just-
got the point.
He got the point, and he retired after that. And but really, when I think
Does he
about it,
live
he was
in
the only
Florida?
bad boss I
Does
had.
he live in Florida, like a block from your condo now, or what?
He might have the the Velcro shoes on now. with the
Why
white
was he
belt.
busting the lieutenant's balls that worked under him? I always thought that the bosses got along well, and it was just their
Nice.
job was to shit on the, the cops.
He was an angry
I always thought the
guy.
bosses stuck together.
And it's funny, in his office, he had a picture of. He was big in the Knights of Columbus. I think he should have been excommunicated, but he's got a picture of him with the cardinal. He's in uniform. I'm like, if the Cardinal only knew that this guy was such an evil
What a
guy.
dick you were.
Like, they called him the Antichrist. That's how bad he was.
Yeah, there's an extent that there's bosses on the job that really go out of their way to be horrible people, destroy other people's lives in malicious ways, and you wonder, like, why are they doing this?
Yeah,
It's such a miserable. Why would you want to go to work and everybody hates you if that didn't have to be? You know,
Some
it's
guys
like
just didn't
you're
get
not
it.
a brown. You know, we used to call them brownies, but then they're meter maids, whatever, traffic enforcement now. But that's the type of job where people, the people are cursing at you all day, and why would you want that if you didn't have to have that? Especially from the people that you work with, not only from the street, but also from your subordinates.
What goes around comes around all the
I
time.
don't understand
right?
that.
It always does.
Yeah.
Those expressions are that way for a reason.
Who knows
right?
to understand these people? But so you're riding high as a captain, but you don't quit, right? You keep going.
And everything after that, as you guys know, but
It's not a test after that.
There's no test. It's
Then it's just,
it's allegedly based on merit.
It's applying the alcohol prep pad to the undercarriage of the rank above you.
Yeah.
Right? You never
one
heard
way to
that
put
one
it, I
in
guess.
You never heard that one in Yonkers
No, I
either,
never heard
right?
that one in Yonkers either. But like I said, I was blessed because I had guys like Bill Taylor, like Pat Hornett. He has a different spelling of his last name, but he was very good to me. They all thought he was my uncle. I said, guys, he spells his name different. But it didn't matter. He was my uncle. I even call him Uncle Pat to this day. John Timoney, rest his soul, was good to me. The prior guest you guys had, Louis Anamone, guys like that held you to a standard. Lou Anamone held you to a standard, and he wasn't going to back off that.
Animo is definitely one of my heroes on the NYPD. I just think he was.
I think the world of him. I think like Jack Maple. Jack Maple was the engineer, the architect, and gets the well-deserved credit for it. But I think Lou Anamone doesn't get enough credit. To me, it was Jack Maple and Lou Anamone that brought the CompStat, not just the meeting, but the process, the mentality, the culture. Because changing the culture of the NYPD back then was tough. There was old-time chiefs back then that were basically looking at their watch saying, this guy Bratton is gone in a year or two.
Right.
We'll just go back to the old ways of doing things. I mean, I remember a time when a precinct commander would maybe know how many murders he had, and that was it. All he knew about was murders, and that was it. He didn't know anything about the other crime, wasn't engaged with the community at all. The squad commander upstairs, a lot of times they didn't know each other's names. I remember in early CompStat, Lou Anamone, Chief Anamone asked a precinct captain, all right, you deal with the guy upstairs, the precinct squad commander? Yes, I do. And it was like, blah, 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 what's his name? And he kind of stumbled a little bit. Like, they didn't really talk to each other much back then.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Now those guys are connected at the hip, and they've been connected at the hip for the last 25 years. And they know their mutual survival depends on putting stuff in place to get crime down.
Sure.
And the system can be brutal. The system was brutal in the beginning, but it works.
Now that you mentioned the crime coming down, it seems like, cops are always one to be pessimist, and they're always talking about, how bad things are going to be, and, just, you know as well as I do, some cops are such pessimists, and then they get in a whole group of it, and there's been all this talk with de Blasio as mayor, but the numbers haven't really reflected it. Between having him, everybody saying how crime is going to spike, but now they're coming up with all these reforms where they're going to stop the bail, and they're going to let people out of jail for everything. Basically, they want for some reason they want them out in the streets again. Now, I have a friend. She's a comic. She's got in touch with me last night because she was robbed recently at gunpoint on the West Side Highway, right in the Midtown. I have another friend who's a comic. He got jumped. And another female comic got punched in the face. All robbery attempts, and all of them in that Midtown Manhattan area. And they're two out of the three are from these bike gangs. I'm not talking about motorcycle gangs. I'm talking about kids on bicycles, surrounding you, following you, and then robbing you. And these are things that are like popping up amongst all your friends. This just happened to be the community that I'm in. No matter what community you're in, I'm sure you're gonna know, or a couple of people who've gotten robbed lately. So now this is all starting to spike up. This is even before the reform. It's all starting to come to the surface now.
Mark, that's interesting because if you went to CompStat, Anamone harped on bicycle summonses. Remember that?
Yeah.
And that was the reason, because of robberies. These kids on bikes are robbing people. Give them a summons for riding on the sidewalk. Give them a summons for blowing a red light. You're supposed to obey the VTL laws even when you're on a bicycle.
The one girl who called me last night, she said that the response was amazing, though. So I would imagine that they're really trying to catch these kids. A couple of them got caught. It's part of obviously a pattern, but she mentioned that there was a helicopter involved.
Wow.
You know, this is
They did probably a level 1 mobilization.
well, because it's a robbery now with a gun in Midtown. So I'm sure they're really trying to grab this the bull by the reins before it gets out of control. But you know, they put her in the car. They drove around with a canvas. Then these stupid kids were using a credit card, so they were getting literally like minute by minute where the credit cards were being used, and then they would go there for video footage. They collected a ton of video footage, so they're going to be able to make these kids. And she wanted to know, which I didn't even. I started thinking to myself, juveniles don't have to sit. Then you don't put them in a lineup. Do you?
Yeah,
they do go in the lineup?
They're really hard to do juvenile.
But there's no
lineups
grand
too.
jury. There's no grand jury for juveniles.
No, well,
is there?
if it goes to criminal court, there is, but usually it winds up in family court.
All right. So I don't think it's going to go to criminal court because it's just a robbery.
Yeah.
And the quality of life stuff, the quality of life stuff back then that we targeted led to great results. Like one of the elected officials, I won't even say her name, was talking about recently about people that are evading the fare on the subway because these are poor people who don't have any money.
Ugh.
If you ever talk to old transit cops, they laugh at that because they all say almost everybody they grab for fare beat had like $100 in their pocket. So it's not like this. The people just jump at the tow and say jump it. The bike summon stuff. We always made great collars by you get a guy riding a bicycle on the sidewalk. Now you talk to him for a while. Now he's nervous. All of a sudden you find out he's got a weapon. He's got a bunch of drugs on him.
Right.
I mean that stuff could always be used as a means to an end, legally, not certainly within the parameters of the
Search
Constitution.
incidental to lawful arrest, which
Yeah.
they've lost in the subway for a fare beater because it's a civil matter. Now,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So you could see mission creep coming back in some cases.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I had it on my phone, just went off, and I have it on airplane mode.
We're gonna have to just
That's
shut
impossible, though.
it
Maybe
completely.
I
Shut
shut
it
it
down.
off.
We have to start over
You
from
know
the
what?
beginning
You
now.
know what I wonder too. Obviously we all have been off the job for a little bit. How good are the anti-crimes right now? Do they have good anti-crimes out there that are engaging people?
The
I don't know.
anti-crime teams?
Yes. How good are they?
I'd like to think that anti-crime for listeners out there, the uninitiated, are active precinct cops that wind up getting out of uniform. They put them in plain clothes. They let them blend in the neighborhood to make quality felony arrests. I think they are, but I think the metrics to get into anti-crime are different. I mean, it used to be you made a lot of arrests, made a good arrest.
Yeah.
The precinct CO said, I got to put you in anti-crime. Now, I don't think they make that many arrests.
Right.
I guess they probably give a lot of maybe quality life tickets or whatever. But I'm sure, I'd like to think that the anti-crime cops out there are still the best of the best in that precinct.
You hope that. Yeah.
Well, I mentioned that pessimism, and you know what happens is that pessimism all of a sudden, at some point, unfortunately, becomes a reality, which is probably going to be faced with, which is going to be a major incident. We've talked about this on the show a couple of times. The boy from Utah,
Brian Watkins,
right? A kid killed in the subway on the stairs, trying to protect his mother, and that turned everything around. That seems to be the one thing we could all agree upon, was that incident was enough is enough. We're not even close to the surface of enough yet,
Right.
because these robberies are just starting to become common knowledge. People are starting to talk. They're starting to talk amongst each other, and they're going to be like, "Oh, that happened to me too, and that happened to me too."
Right.
And unfortunately, we're living in a time right now where everybody, we're in a city where there's a lot of, obviously there's always been liberals here, but a lot of left leaning, and they believe in this, and they're woke, and they don't. But you know what? Something happens when somebody smashes you right in the face, like Mike Tyson used to say.
Yep.
Everybody's got a plan until you got punched in your face.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's
So.
right. Mark, I say one thing is that it's not what the hierarchy of the NYPD always talks about is that, the numbers are down, but it's something called disorder. Disorder is up, and disorder leads to crime.
Yeah.
And that's what they're not talking about.
Yeah, Bratton, when he first came in the first time, talked about fear, crime, and disorder. And it's hard to measure disorder, but you know when you see it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the reason why we have you here, and we're going to talk about it in the second half, is because since crime is on the verge of going up, and you retired and you went on to be commissioner in Yonkers. We're going to talk about that too. We've been thinking about suiting you up, putting the cape on, and putting you back, letting you run around the street and fixing everything up for us. If you could, we'd really appreciate that.
If you can get me out of this dungeon, we'll do it.
We want to hear about the culture in Yonkers PD too, as compared to the
Oh,
NYPD.
yeah.
We're gonna get
We got
into
a lot
that in the
of
second half.
a lot of shit to hit you with in
That's
the second
great stuff.
half. You know.
Yeah.
You're
I'm
a
ready.
good-
I'm
I tell you
excited.
something. You're a good guest, though, man.
Yeah, this is
You
great.
got the Irish blondie, man. You could just keep talking
Thank you.
forever.
I
huh?
think the
gonna
next
get him up
segment
on
we should just
The
talk
next
about Mark.
show that we do, the next comedy show that we have, the Police Off the Cuff, where we get together. We haven't have a date.
We're gonna
on
give
that
him
yet,
5
but-
minutes.
Oh, you're gonna get more than 5
I'll
minutes.
warm up the crowd.
No, you're gonna get your 10 minutes.
And Rashad, he wants to be a comic
You're
too.
gonna get
you
10
know?
to 12
I
minutes, just
sent
like
him
every
that
other
book.
comic on the
He's
show.
learning how to write jokes.
All right, so this was a great first hour with our guest, Ed Hartnett. And we're going to be back. We're going to be back for the second half. We're going to hear about your experience in Yonkers.
Thank you, guys.
All right,
Cool.
thanks, Ed.